Good afternoon and happy Tuesday. You are listening to Charity Talk with Aliah Henry, and it is a pleasure to be in the studio today. I have two amazing guests in the studio. To my right, which you guys can't see because clearly you're listening, and I love my listeners. Thank you for tuning in today. So Lexi Okeke is in the studio. Hi, Lexi.
Good afternoon, Aliah.
How are you?
I'm great. Great to be here.
Good. It's good to have you back.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, and I'm so excited, I'm honored to have Arrvel Wilson. And I'm going to give my shameless plug. He has allowed me not to call him. He prefers to be called, for me not to call him Reverend. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm being definitely disrespectful, but it's a pleasure to have you in the studio today. How are you?
I'm doing fine. It's exciting to be with you.
Yeah. So we hadn't seen each other since Thanksgiving, but I follow you all the time on Facebook. So I feel like I'm closer to you all the time, on a regular basis. Okay. So to everyone that's listening, they are here representing Serve West Dallas. And one of the amazing things, I think, for Lexi and I, because, we're kind of transplanted into these spaces of the nonprofit world over the last 10, 15 years. But we've had an opportunity to work with some amazing people and some amazing organizations. And Arrvel Wilson he is the founder of Serve West Dallas.
Absolutely.
And, I will share a personal story. For the last 2 years, my family and I have been serving on Thanksgiving morning in the West Dallas area with Serve West Dallas and Mr. Wilson and Lexi and about 300 to 400 other volunteers on Thanksgiving morning. And so, one thing that I'll say is, and most of you all that listen, you know me, I'm all about volunteering in the community and paying it forward. But when you think about Thanksgiving morning and everybody's been cooking and slaving for hours on this great big feast of what they're going to have, and they're not just going to have it for one time. They're going to graze, they're going to graze all day while they're watching football and we're hanging out. Yeah. And to understand and to know that there is a community of people who don't have that. Over 600 is what we've been feeding.
Right.
And I will tell you, it fills my heart. Fills my soul when we're there, because we know that we have really given an opportunity for someone to have a really great meal, and you guys, all the meals are cooked, homemade, and the turkeys are all prepped and done, and it's wonderful. And so it's almost like you're given a piece of the mission back, and you're putting it in the community. And it's so great in that way, because any other day, everybody's closed. We're closed for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And these families would not get fed.
Right.
Yeah.
And so thank you, Lexi, to you for introducing me and my family
Absolutely.
To this opportunity, because, of course, we just get excited to get up and come out and fellowship. And it's just a really great time. But then knowing that we were a part of, a small part of the big picture.
Absolutely.
Of the mission, as you guys are continuing to deliver services.
Absolutely.
In West Dallas.
And I know Arrvel is going to share a lot of the history and the vision and kind of what's made West Dallas be what it is today. But I kind of want to share a little bit about who he is and just the dynamic and the power of the work that he is doing and his vision, just to give everyone context.
Yeah, we love that.
It has been my sincere pleasure and honor to serve alongside him and the team. And like you mentioned earlier, he is the founder of Serve West Dallas. But not only that, he's not someone that came from out of state, out of whatever, in order to be a part of West Dallas, although we love our transplants into the community. He is someone who was raised in West Dallas. He saw West Dallas as it was in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s before the development that you see now. He saw it when there were housing situations for those lower income families that were not even to the level that it is now. He saw it when there was no type of investment. There was no really response from the city to the plight of these families. And at the time, his dad had a vision for the transformation of these families, that these families would be spiritually fed, would have economic power, would be able to speak into their community and have their community be of the type that they want to live in. And his dad spoke that vision into Arrvel's family. And so Arrvel is truly carrying on that vision. He is a Marine, because I know those of you guys that are Marines know that there is no such thing as a former Marine.
No, there is not.
There is no such thing as a former Marine. So he is a Marine. He is a theologian. He is a lover of people. And it is that whole idea that really translates into the work that we do, so that when you and your family come to West Dallas for Thanksgiving, it's not just we're going to plop some food into a container. It's we love our community, and everything that we do will be felt. That's really the thing that underlines the work that we do. And we do that because of the vision and the heart of Arrvel Wilson.
Yeah. It's beautiful that you say that, because again, and I get a lot of calls and people will say, where do you volunteer? Where do you get involved? When do you know when it's time to get involved? And certainly we'll hear that from you, because that's I know that your father had this vision, but when did you know it was your calling?
Well, actually, we moved to West Dallas in 1949 from Jefferson, Texas, and if you knew what it was like in the late 40s, no running water, and everything was different from what it is now. In 1951, the government decided to build housing projects. So in building the housing projects, we had running water upstairs, downstairs. But over the years, and you have to excuse me because I know we get time, so I'm going to go through this history. I'm going to go through this history. So over the years, after building the housing development, it was segregated. They had the housing for whites, housing for Hispanics, and housing for blacks. So it was George Loving, Edgar Ward, and Elmer Scott. Now, the uniqueness about that housing projects in the early 50s is, though it was segregated, it was integrated.
Wow.
And the reason being is there was an organization called West Dallas Community Centers.
I remember.
Yeah. And so out of the West Dallas Community Centers, organizations would participate in football, basketball, boxing, smokers, and dancers. So we were integrated, though Dallas was segregated. And my dad, I still had some problems with Dallas back then. I could only go to the State Fair on Negro Achievement Day, the last Monday of the State Fair. And I had problems with that. I was always a little radical. And so I noticed that there was a group protesting. And I asked my dad, what are they doing? He says, they are protesting because you can only go to the fair the last Monday of the month.
Wow.
I said, I want to do what they're doing. So I became a protester early on in my life. And then as I moved on in life, I still had some issues burning in me about why whites treat blacks like they do. And my dad says, son, I'm going to prove to you that the issue is not the color of the skin, it's sin. And he was a construction worker. He built homes all over Dallas. And so my uncles back then had what we call drop-ins.
Okay.
On weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. Little. Have you ever seen Color Purple? That little nightclub? That's the way the nightclubs were in West Dallas.
Okay.
And so his idea was to show the family that no matter what the color of your skin, there was still issues within the family. So on Friday nights, he would bring his co-workers, Hispanics and whites, to our house until the drop-in opened. So they would play dominoes and checkers.
Wow.
And he would say, listen to the conversations. As he would ask his co-workers how things going at home, he asked them different questions about their family. But it was during that time he was teaching us that no matter what the color of the skin was, there are issues. And that issue is a sin issue. And so as I moved forward, I began to, probably when the project started deteriorating in the 60s, I began to want to get away from West Dallas. I started planning my exit. I said, once I finish high school, I'm out of here. There were a group of guys. My mom, if you ever seen the movie The Help?
Yes.
My
it's a very good movie.
mom worked in a situation. She was the help at one of the homes here in Dallas on Inwood Road.
Okay.
And the people that my mom was employed by took an interest in me. And they wanted to make sure once I finished high school, I have a career.
Well, that was
And what they did was they got me a job in a barbershop downtown on Arrvel Street. And they said, you will be able to earn money and know what make the city of Dallas work.
wow.
Because in this barbershop will come people who run Dallas. And so you listen to the conversations as you work in this barbershop. And I said, well, what would I do? And the guy looked at me and said, you'll be shining shoes and sweeping up hair. You got to be crazy. I'd rather go out to Dallas Country Club and caddy. But anyway, that was the beginning of me learning about society and how it works.
Sure.
Working in a barbershop and listening to the conversations of what make Dallas work. And I did after 1965. I graduated from Pinkston in 1965, first year that it opened up. I graduated on a Tuesday night, a Wednesday morning. I was at Love Field. I was getting out of Dallas.
You were getting out. You said you were.
And I went into the Marine Corps. I spent almost 9 years in the Marine Corps. It was during my time in the Marine Corps that I met this, the best thing this side of heaven, Aliah Wilson. And, and the way we met was very interesting. I was in the Marine Corps. I was stationed at Parris Island, South Carolina. It was July the 3rd, 1960. I don't want to give her age away, so I don't anyway, it was 1968. And so I went to a dance in Port Royal, South Carolina. The nightclub was called Casablanca. And the band would play. I learned early in life, always follow the bands if you're in the Marine Corps, because they didn't like Marines to come into the different areas. But if you're with the band,
then you were okay.
Okay. So I was there at Casablanca. I was getting on a good foot, and I was dancing. And I came back to my table. This young lady was sitting at the table. And I said, hello, do you realize you're at my table? She says, you a Marine? I said, yes. She says, are you married? I said, no. She says, no problem then. So we danced the night away, July the 3rd. We came back to the same club July the 4th. And at that time, I said, you know what? This is the lady that I want to marry.
Wow.
That I prayed for when I was a kid. And so I proposed to her. I said, I want to take you home to meet my family because I want to marry you. But I shouldn't marry you now, but I'm going to go ahead and marry you to keep from losing you. And so I brought her home to meet my family in 68, July of 68. And my family, my dad said, son, that's a winner. And we married in December of 68.
Oh, it's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That's great.
And Aletha is the strong. Her backbone is what supported me.
And that's good.
We in our early life, we were young and foolish, and we started going to Community Bible Church in Oak Cliff. And Aletha wanted, when Aletha set her eye on something, she's focused. And she wanted me to be focused, and she said, I'm going to get the older women in the church to pray for you, that your taste buds and eyesight be changed. And they prayed for me, and the Lord began to work in a supernatural way. There was a story about West Dallas in the newspaper. I said, that's why I don't go to West Dallas. They'll never straighten out. And she says, honey, I can't believe you're saying that. There are people out there that you know, some of your drinking buddies out there. Why don't we go for the summer? It has been the longest summer I ever experienced.
Y'all still there in West Dallas.
Still there in West Dallas. But we realized that the Lord had sent us there for a purpose. And so what we decided to do was find out what that purpose was. And we committed ourselves to the Lord. We went out into the community. We introduced ourselves as Arrvel and Aliah Wilson. We're here to serve you. How can we serve you? If we was a church, what do you think the church would be like? So we wrote everything down that the community told us. And the reality of it is they helped us get our purpose and set our goals in order to minister for the Lord. And that opened all doors for us.
Wow.
And we began to do volunteer work. One of the things I realized is that one church can't do it all.
Yeah.
So we began to pray that the Lord would send forth help. And a young man by the name of Gary Barnes, who's now a professor at Dallas Theological Seminary, was doing a study for the STEP Foundation. And he found out about us being in West Dallas, and he did an interview. He became a friend, and he told some other churches about what we were doing in West Dallas, and that I was working a full-time job and needed to be a full-time pastor. And an organization by the name of Black Evangelistic Enterprise that started churches like Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship and other churches. Dr. Reuben Connor was the pastor, and he thought maybe that I should come under their auspices. And Gary Barnes had some churches, Bible churches, come aboard to support us. And I always feel it's not enough to get your money. You got to be involved physically.
You do.
And so we encourage them, people to come together to form the West Dallas Steering Committee meeting, and the rest is history. We realized in order to show the people what Christianity was all about, we had to be committed when it come to bridging the gap between the races. So we made that a priority also.
Well, that is great. So this is just, it's incredible to just hear your story. And I know for those of you that are married, aren't married, thinking about getting married, this really should be your testament of there truly is like that unconditional love at first sight kind of thing. What you think, Lexi?
Absolutely. Well, and I have
impressed.
the joy of working with both Pastor Arrvel and Miss Aliah. And the thing that I love is they both have incredibly strong individual personalities, and together they are just a dynamic duo.
Yeah.
And so it truly is a joy to be able to see the dynamic of the intense love and trust that they have in one another, and the support that they have for one another, because Miss Aliah couldn't be here today because she's got her thing going on, and she is just as passionate about West Dallas and serving the residents.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I hope you guys that are listening are enjoying our conversation with Arrvel Wilson of Serve West Dallas. I'm going to take a quick break, and we will be right back, and we'll continue our discussion with Arrvel and Lexi and talk about where West Dallas is going. We'll be right back. You're listening to Charity Talk with Aliah Henry. And we're back. You're listening to Charity Talk with Aliah Henry. And it has been just a pleasure to talk to Arrvel Wilson about, I would just say, his life over the years and hearing, some of the stories about the early 1950s. And then just listening to him, I kind of have painted a picture for myself of what that looks like, and now driving down, West Dallas and knowing what I know in the last 15 years, because I've only been here for 15 years, but I've just seen such a major change in West Dallas within the time that I've been here. And so it's just really nice to kind of hear your story and hear you talk about your life and your wife and the military. And then, of course, your work here, and kind of not why you guys are passionate about the West Dallas area. Obviously, you're from there, so it does make sense, and that makes sense to me. One of the things that I want to ask you, and it's something that I was talking about at Austin College last week about community collaboration and nonprofits working together. Give us your take on that and why it's so important that we be collaborative within our communities.
Okay. Well, Serve West Dallas started basically because some of the things that was going on in our community, the people that we were serving as individual nonprofits was wondering why we couldn't get along. They didn't come right out and say it. They just said, why do y'all not work together? And I began to listen to her. Some of the questions. And so I think what caught my attention when I went to one of the foundations, local foundations, and they said, it seems like when you have a lot of good things going on in the community, but when I ask one organization about the other organization, it seems like there's some tension there because that organization may think this other organization may get the grant before they do. Yeah. And so I began to listen to that. And so I have always felt like collaboration is where you get your strength from. And so I have people who have helped me start different ministries and outreach. And so when I heard that from the community, I knew that there needed to be something done. And so I went to a couple of friends that I know. No, I haven't got permission to say that name on the radio. So I guess I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't, I don't want to mention Bill Dunlap, John Carpenter, or Roy Truitt. I don't want to do that, so I won't do that. But anyway, I went to these three guys, and I shared with them my heart and what was going on. And Bill says, Arrvel, do you think that you could get them all to come? I said, well, I think if we call them, that they would come, but we just don't want the ministries. We want others, the police force and others that serve the community to come as a group so we can all talk about how we can collaborate together. And so we made a phone call, and to our amazement, everyone that we called showed up.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so we began to look at how we can get more involved in our ego.
Yeah.
There's two ways you can look at ego. You can either edge God out, or you can equally glorify God only. And so we looked at it from that perspective, and we decided that we want to glorify God, and not edge him out and make sure that he get the credit. So we began to talk about how we could come together. Bill knew a guy in Memphis, Tennessee, that had done it before. And we reached out for him. His name is Scott Hansen. And he came, and we sort of put everything together and began to work on what it really means to serve the community in a unique way. We are not perfect. You won't get this perfect this side of heaven, but you can make some major changes when it comes to relate to one another and allowing the Holy Spirit to take what is God and make it known to you in such a supernatural way where it brings glory to God and not you as an individual or the ministry. And so out of that, Sir West Dallas became the focal point of what we do, and not just our little pocket, but the whole West Dallas. And we were blessed with Lexi. she got this brain housing group that goes full force.
She does. She's remarkable.
Oh, thank you. No, I love it. And I kind of want to tie 2 times that I've been here in the studio with you together, Aliah, because of what Arrvel just shared. The last time I was here, Dr. François Booker Drew was in the studio as well, and we talked about collective impact and the structure and the challenge that we face as an organization in that model. And one of the specific things that we talked about was having the community come to the table and the power dynamics when you don't have the community's voice heard in the work that we do as collective impact. And the thing that I so appreciate about Pastor Arrvel and the others that are absolute pillars in the West Dallas community is that there is a value of the voice of the resident. There are things that they say. It may not be said the same way a nonprofit professional may say it. It may not be said the same way a foundation exec says it, but the reality is they are the ones that are probably the most impacted by decisions that are made in the community, and therefore their voice must be heard. And the thing that I appreciate about Serve West Dallas is from the foundation of the organization, the reason why we're founded is because the community said, you organizations need to work together. And because Arrvel was responsive to that, we were created. And then to have him here to constantly say, what is the community saying? What is the, what are the needs based on what the community is saying, not just what we huddled in our, office, think is the problem, but what is the community itself identifying as a challenge and then responding to that in working with them, not even as we identify the challenge, pushing them off to the side, but in all things, working with the community order to address the challenges that are priority to them.
I think it's very important to include residents in the community in terms of their needs. I think often the decision makers, foundations, all the great folks that want to help that don't live in the community don't understand the direct community need. And so it's great to sit on the sideline and say, hey, we want to help. And if, whether or not if you're giving financially or if you're giving a product, but hey, we don't want to take a product if that's not what's needed. We need to understand what the needs are. And so I love the fact that you all really dive in and understand the needs of the community people, because that's what it's all about. It's interesting. Every time I think about the Thanksgiving feeding during Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving Day, some would think, well, Serve West Dallas, we've got the community centers, we've got all these things going on. Residents are fine. But until you hear that, well, no, this is what's needed. And it's needed that we feed 600 plus people today, not tomorrow, on this day. But the community probably wouldn't even think that that was the need that needed to happen. And so I always go back because, again, when you said you were serving meals, I'm thinking, okay, we're serving like 50 people. My first year when I came out there, I walked away with that was like a huge need. So from the outside looking in, I would have never known in that small community. It's not that small, but in the community of West Dallas, there was that huge of a need. When you're outside looking in, you don't know. And so what I think is great is that you focus on that because, again, if you don't ask them, you're not going to know. You may be in there doing all kinds of stuff, and they're looking at y'all like, what are they doing that for? Because that's not what we want, and that's what we need. But to bring them in helps them to be a part of it. I also noticed that day that I was there were residents helping, and they, and that's huge. That's huge because I think when the next generation hits, those will be the same residents that will continue to take care of West Dallas. And so as we think about paying it forward, but then also looking back to see who is going to help in the area, I think it's important for me. It made us go back and think about, okay, who in my area is hurting and what's the need in the area. And, interesting, this year we found that there were lots of different needs, whether it was clothing, there's a food pantry not even a mile from my house. So again, I wouldn't have really thought about it if I hadn't had that experience at Serve West Dallas. Because and that's why I always tell people, to get out there and volunteer, use your gift, and volunteer for places that you're passionate about, or maybe some things that you don't know anything about, but you just want to help, because it will shape your thought process. It will shape your life. It will really start to shape your life and your thinking and how you think about service and giving back. Because for me, that encounter, not that it wasn't the first time I've ever volunteered, but it was just the idea that I didn't realize that there was such a need in the community. I've been helping families with houses for like 6 years in West Dallas. Didn't think about the other part in other missions that can be helped and served. And so, of course, now I'm always looking, and even in my community, looking for all of those things that are needed as well.
Absolutely. And there's tremendous need, and there's also tremendous opportunity. We look at, on the need side, there's certainly needs in West Dallas, and we're so blessed to be able to partner with some phenomenal organizations that are meeting those needs. We're also very aware, though, that even though these organizations have defined their mission and the work that they do, we've always got to be cognizant of the fact that we want to always communicate out how folks can partner with this, how you can come into this journey that we're on to serve the residents, because it isn't just about us, basically a transactional type of relationship with the residents where we're constantly just doing for them, but there is something that happens when that exchange happens. You're learning something of the values that our West Dallas residents have, and it's not just for us that are practitioners in the nonprofit space, it's for all of Dallas. We want all of Dallas to come to West Dallas because there are values within each of our residents as far as resilience and strength and faith and hope and all these things that we feel like the greater Dallas community can learn from.
I think it's great. Talk a little bit about what's going on this quarter, because obviously when you were here, I guess it was in the fall, but now you're back, and of course it's 2017. What's the plan for Serve West Dallas this year? What are your goals, and what are you guys working on?
Sure. I can talk specifically about what we're working on right now, and then there's, of course, some big elephants in the room, I guess you could say, as regarding some things that are happening in West Dallas. So we just finished our pre-pilot for the Pathways program. The Pathways program is a middle skills career pathway in the healthcare industry for our residents that are age 18 to 24 and may not be on a pathway for a 4-year degree, but still want a career that sustains a family. So in response to that need, we have created or piloting a career pathway. It's in partnership with Baylor University Medical Center and Dallas Community College District, United Way of Metropolitan Dallas, DISD, Young Life West Dallas, Mercy Street, and several other partners. So we're not only providing basically a job training type of program, it is also that level of care and family support that someone coming out of a under-resourced community needs in order to go from a low wage or minimum wage job into a middle skill career pathway.
Love it.
So there are some very intentional things that need to be done that, quite frankly, have not necessarily been done in the corporate and HR field. So the reason why we're piloting this particular program is because it is new for corporations. This idea of not only providing job training, but really the family and mental emotional support that someone needs that's coming out of a community like West Dallas. So we just graduated our first cohort for that. We're getting ready to do another cohort, and we're actually officially launching the program in the fall.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
Thanks. Yes.
That's big. That's big. I love it.
Incredibly excited about that because that's jobs. That's not just a program.
Yeah.
That's transforming a life
and
a
that's
family.
Future stability for a family.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Wow. That's exciting.
And it's important. JP Morgan Chase, who we're so appreciative of, even though they're not necessarily a partner at the table, they released a report, I guess it's about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, talking specifically about this challenge, that there are communities all over the United States where young people are feeling a disconnect from the jobs market. And there were 2 communities in Dallas that were identified. One was South Dallas Fair Park, and the other was West Dallas. So this particular program is our response to that report.
That is exciting.
Yeah. We're excited. And then, chime in if I'm speaking too much, Pastor Arrvel.
No, you're not speaking too much. You're right. You're directly on target. When you mention South Dallas, I think a lot of time people forget that West Dallas is part of the South, or the Trinity is part of South Dallas. Yeah. And I realized that some time ago. And so what I did is I built a relationship with some of the pastors there, and shared with them some of the things that I was doing by creating another arm besides just the church itself, another portion of a ministry that could do a lot of things. So I approached Chris Simmons and S.M. Wright Jr., Stephen Broden, Vincent Parker, some others that was in different parts of Dallas, so that we could build the complete body of Christ, not just this portion of 75212, but other portions of Dallas that was wrestling with some issues, and the importance of collaboration. And so I'm excited about what God is doing in a unique, quiet way.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point that folks realize. There is literally no competition between South Dallas and West Dallas. Yeah. And when I say that, I mean we each have challenges, and we want to work together in order to transform our communities. And so, Pastor Arrvel, and this isn't just something that has happened within, the last year. He has had the mindset of, how can we help? How can we truly be a brother and sister in Christ to all of the residents of Dallas, and certainly those communities that need support, so that we can be working together.
And when you talk about challenges, because it's interesting, for some nonprofits and some communities, I think to the outside world and the communities that aren't in it, they look at, they've got everything together. Share some of the challenges that you've had in West Dallas over the last couple of years. I mean, I think we don't talk about the bad things, right? We always talk about the good things. We always talk about what we want to do. But sometimes people also have to understand we do have challenges. And there's ways that I think the community, can get involved, but then also just for us to understand, because sometimes we can sit outside that silo and think they're fine. They got the churches there, they got a couple nonprofits there. They're good. But communities are struggling still.
Yeah, and in any community, though you may have the nonprofits and a lot of other things going on that looks good, you still got to deal with the human resource part. And so you got to deal with the gentrification. You got to deal with, just a lot of issues when it comes to undergirding one another, realizing that it's a spiritual warfare as well as a physical warfare. The enemy comes in like a flood, try to divide the community, whether it's through race, gentrification, modification, you name it. West Dallas is experiencing just like other parts of Dallas, and you have to be extra careful when you talk about gentrification. You got to understand that we, as a community, need to stand together and speak the truth in love without turning violent. And so I think that's one of the major issues that we are facing right now in the West Dallas community. What do you do with growth? Coming into West Dallas, and how can it affect, other than the tax base, how does it affect people? And we experienced it some time ago, back when they wanted to demolish the housing authority to move people out. And we said, if you're going to move out, move in also. So we created Greenleaf Village, 310 homes, working with Habitat for Humanity and KB Homes. And I think that we sometimes forget, how important it is to the least of that we minister to surrounding. We have to be extra careful how we look at our politicians. Maybe this is not the show to talk about that.
Well, I will certainly say I love driving through West Dallas and seeing, the apartments and the homes and, just people thriving in the community. It's been great. Our agency has had an opportunity to move some families in to the West Dallas area, and certainly it's just beautiful to see. One of the things I remember, my first house that we did over there was partnered with Habitat back in 2011. We went in to house someone in another house on another block. And do you know that family is still there, still intact? This is 5 years later. Still intact. Kids are grown. They were a little bit taller than they were when I first saw them. But I was just so amazed. But pleased, because in that work, we are here to help families stay together and become stable and be able to be good citizens within their society, and to see them come out and see us put another family in and be there to help and be there to say, hey, come look at the house now. It's almost just the same. We added a little bit more stuff. Was really just pleasant. And it's just amazing. And so I drive through all the time, and it's just nice to see that, because I know I had a small piece in that.
Yes.
And but just to see it still growing is just, I don't know, it's just kind of, it's humbling to be in the nonprofit professional space.
And you asked about some of the challenges we face, and one of the things that Pastor Arrvel was talking about is, the housing challenge that we're obviously facing right now, and it's talked about in the news and the newspapers and what have you. And the thing that we come back to is one of the community values is family. Now, how family can be defined has lots of different, meanings and ways. It's inclusive of grandma as the head of household, or it may be an uncle, or it may be a mother and father that are intact. But regardless, one of those values in the community is family. And so when you have this tension as it relates to housing that is happening right now, one of the things that we talk about is when you displace a family, you're not just displacing them, that one particular unit, but you're also in some ways or in a lot of ways, shaking up their support system, the system that they use in order to navigate through life.
Exactly.
And so because of the vision of Pastor Arrvel and the way Serve West Dallas is structured and a lot of the organizations that serve the residents, we can't just say, try to find a home for them. We understand the fact that it's not just a physical place that they're concerned about. They're concerned about their whole support system and the way that they live life. And so that's a challenge we're facing right now. I wish I could say we have the solution.
I wish we could too.
But the reality,
I don't think we do.
yeah. But the great thing is we are Christians and believers, so we pray a lot.
Yeah. And with that, there'll be other issues. But certainly, I'm just glad we're talking about it. I'm glad the city's talking about it. It is wonderful to see so many different communities working on it and working toward it.
Yeah.
And so every time we see different communities come up or a new apartment manager or development company that says, okay, well, we're going to break down some barriers so we can get, families into apartments. That's the win-win. In our agency, we were able to house 554 families last year, help them furnish, in all these housing, no matter where they were, whether they came from Habitat for Humanity, they went into HUD housing, they went into permanent supportive housing, they were housed. And just like you said, if family can be that segment tie-in and the stability piece, I think we're winning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just got work. We just got more work to do.
Absolutely.
So Arrvel, you'll just have to stay around long.
I think West Dallas, in its own unique way, worked through a lot of the things that we are going through now. They just need to go back and look at the blueprint that we worked on back in. It says Saturday, September 18, 2004, Lake West YMCA. West Dallas Charette sponsors, and they named the sponsors.
Wow!
And just and
it's
I
amazing.
think sometimes we get to moving so fast we forget where we saw we could be because others from the outside thought they had a better idea than the inside, and the inside had already worked it out.
They worked it out.
And so I think that we need to go back sometime. It says on this charrette, Bridge to the Future. So the Lord laid it on my heart to go back into my folders and just look and see what was it that we promised the community, and what is it that we are not doing that we promised, and what is causing the division. And as I stepped away from the pulpit, I want to be more involved in the community to rebuild and reshape. And I thank the Lord for Lexi and Serve West Dallas and the people coming together to be part of the vision to serve the Lord.
Well, I tell you, it's a pleasure to watch and watch so many dynamic leaders. And certainly Lexi and I have known each other for some years. And so to see her flourish, in a space where she's just excited, it is amazing. And so, again, and our time is running here. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a leader. And thank you for being a leader, I know, for us that we can model and just know that your work is being watched and we're taking notes so that we can continue in our work in our communities as well. But it's just really good to have that opportunity to see it right in front of us because sometimes we see all these big leaders and we don't know them. We see them on TV. We see them, doing all these different things. But it's another thing to have a community leader that's right here in the mix of what we do every day. And it's certainly not only humbling, but it's inspiring to watch you because I know there's so much more work to do. And now, we'll take that torch as well, and we'll continue to keep working, and if we can inspire others to get involved and work within their communities and all of that. I think that's what we're here to do. So I want to thank you both for being on the show. You've been listening to Charity Talk with Aliah Henry. And thank you to Arrvel Wilson and Lexi Okeke with Serve West Dallas. Thanks so much, and we will talk to you all next week. Have a great week.